Good evening. Thank you for attending the Washington Area Committee. Tonight, we are going to have a work session on three bills, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we have everyone here that was invited. It looks like we have park and planning, and I see Mr. Bolt. Okay, great. So what I do want to do is want to go ahead and get started with, let me get the bill number. Well, since we have Delegate Corman and Delegate Plakovich-Carr here, I want to do the MCPG 10125, the open meetings bill. Essentially want to get a pulse and see what people's thoughts are on the bill. I believe Delegate Plakovich-Carr had a potential feedback on an amendment. So Delegate Plakovich-Carr, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, colleagues. So earlier today, I shared with you the concept for a potential amendment to narrow the bill. So as you might recall, the bill as it came in would have allowed the Montgomery County Planning Board and WSSC, their commission, to be exempt from some live streaming requirements that we put in place several years ago through this delegation and through the Prince George's County delegation. If they were going to be holding like an educational field tour or a community meeting outside their headquarters. The amendment would limit the exemption from live streaming for just those educational field tours or project site visits. And we're choosing to mirror some language from another piece of statute that some other members of our delegation, including Delegate Corman, sponsored a couple sessions ago. So the amendment really does just narrow the bill just to give an exemption from that live streaming requirement for educational field tours, and wanted to offer that up for the committee's potential consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or feedback? Okay, Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Chair, or in this case, Delegate Plakovich-Carr, for working on that change. There's a few different laws that require different entities to stream their meetings. And I worked with actually Delegate Plakovich-Carr's state senator, Senator Kagan, on a number of them. Our former colleague Al Carr worked on a number of the more local ones. And yeah, as was explained, there's sort of different standards in those rules. So I appreciate Delegate Plakovich-Carr being willing to use the narrower standard that is in place for multiple other state agencies that we've asked to live stream their meetings. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Vogel.
Sorry, Madam Chair, in line with what Chairman Corman was saying, I just had a similar question, so I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Great. Delegate Lopez.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to add context, this was an issue that came up during our 2023 work group, but it didn't fit within the framework of the parameters of that discussion, which was the development review process. And so I'm glad to see that it was introduced because it's a streamlining of things and making sure that the process is working a little bit more functionally and realistically. Right? There's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, and this is a situation with the amendment where everything lines up. So I appreciate your due diligence, Delegate Plakovich-Carr, and everybody here who's been working on this for quite some time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Delegate. Okay. Any other feedback or thoughts? Okay, hearing none, I am inclined to review the amendment and probably consider it for another week when we actually have a voting session. But right now it's just a working session for this bill and the others. So if there are no other questions or thoughts on that bill, I want to move to Delegate Solomon's bill because I know he had to leave early, but I wanted to get to MCPG 11625, the Municipal Authority to Regulate Structures bill. This is a bill that's impacting the 12 municipalities in the county and wanted to have this opportunity to discuss with the committee their thoughts on the bill since we first heard it in December. I know recently we had an email sent from Mr. Bolt. So thank you, Mr. Bolt. And thank you, Delegate Solomon's office, for providing that information as a follow-up to our last conversation in December. Delegate Plakovich-Carr. Chair Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, if it's okay, I maybe would just ask Mr. Bolt to clarify, because I was trying to digest the email as we were getting on this call tonight. So it sounds like the municipalities that are impacted under the bill are in agreement that there's like 3 core zoning areas, are 40, 60, and 90, that they would say that that's what falls within the definition of predominantly single family. And then one of the municipalities provided a broader list of zones. Is that right? And then, Mr. Bolt, can you
That's
just
correct,
what
yes.
those additional zones are? And then I guess my other question is based on that feedback, is then this the full list of zones that we are saying what a predominantly single family zone qualifies for under the bill? Are we expecting feedback from any other municipalities? And I'll let you
No,
know.
not expecting any other feedback. So I represent 9 of the municipalities. Ms. Ferguson, who you received the other email from, represents 2. Tacoma Park's not yet joined this effort, so we don't have comments from them.
I see. So depending on what feedback we get from Tacoma Park, there may be additional zones that could fall under the scope of the bill.
It's possible, yes, although my inclination would be to say that it's unlikely to be anything else. I think that from brief conversations I've had, that Tacoma Park would not represent any other communities, but we can certainly try and pin that down. They would
Okay.
not suggest any others other than what we've been, what we've shared with you today.
And Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, please, go ahead.
would it also be possible to see like maps for each of these municipalities of where these zones fall? I think that'd be the other piece. It's very helpful to have the list and the context for these, but I think if we can also get maps for each of the jurisdictions, I think that'll also help us fill in what this might mean. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I had any other hands. I don't see any other hands raised. Okay. In addition to the maps, is it possible, and forgive me if we haven't already addressed this, but the population sizes of these areas as well?
Yes, we
that
can
would help.
provide that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. I know in the hearing, the builder associations that they had some concerns that they were going to address. Had they reached out to you? Have they been have those concerns been addressed by them, or there's been no follow-up since then?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we had a conversation with them. They just wanted to better understand what the bill was about. They kind of looked at it quickly, and when we went through the reasoning behind it, they were totally fine with it. And I will say, I had a really wonderful conversation with Mayor Searcy from Tacoma Park. They had sort of put any engagement with new state legislation on pause until after their election. And so we talked before the holiday, and she assured me they were just going to take another look at it. So we've been playing phone tag since the new year, but I'm hoping that that they'll, to Ron's comment, they'll be supportive of the bill as well, and we can get you the follow up. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're also in conversations with the folks in the planning board. They weren't 100% sure that predominantly single family was the best phrasing of it. We're kind of at a little bit of a sticky point because the county zoning code is not 100% clear on things. And there's not 100% definition. So we're also going to have conversations with the planning board over the next couple of days to try to figure out whether there's a better term or a better way to phrase exactly what we're trying to get at here.
I see the planning board is on the call. Just want to confirm if that's your understanding of where things are with this legislation, because I do remember the concern was that there was a seeking clarity on, family structure, multifamily structures that had 5 or more units and how they were intended to be on the house scale.
Yeah, that is correct. The board has not taken a formal position on this yet. We had wanted some clarification of some things, and so we, will be talking to Delegate Solomon over the next few days to understand better. So yeah, that's where we are. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
And I just have to say, Chair Harris, thank you. Jason Sartori has been really wonderful to work with, so appreciate your staff being really great partners in putting this together.
Wonderful. Okay, I hear, looks like Zoom has a different prompt for the hand raise, so I think that's the key. Okay, yes, Delegate Plokovich-Carr, yes. See.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And sorry for the second bite of the apple. Since we do have the bill sponsor here, Delegate Solomon, can you just clarify for me? So in the bill, it says that it's for land zone for predominantly single-family residential use as of January 1st, 2024. Can you just explain the rationale for that particular date, or is this just one of those things where we need to have a date and that was sufficiently well known in terms of what that was going to mean? Or is there something more to that, to using the beginning of last year? And if Mr. Bolt has a better answer or fuller answer, happy to defer to him.
Yeah, Ron, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. The reason we picked that date is to mirror it with the Governor's Housing Expansion and Affordability Act, which was recently passed, as you know, and which provides that the county must allow private development that is for a qualified project to include certain density and perhaps mixed use bonuses. Those don't apply in areas that are zoned for single family residential use as of January 1, 2024. So we wanted to mirror that date. And the state laws, unfortunately, refer to single family, but the county code doesn't use the same terminology. So we're struggling with how to come up with terminology that matches.
Thank you.
Delegate Wilkins.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Delegate, for bringing this bill. As was mentioned, I'm definitely, of course, interested in Takoma Park's views on the bill. So I also will reach out to see if there are any updates. But I did make a note during the hearing that the bill is also making some clarifications, particularly in advance of the attainable housing plan that is under consideration. And I just wanted, just given lots of discussion around the attainable housing plan in the county, wanted to just make sure I gave the bill sponsor an opportunity to talk more about the impacts that this bill would have if that housing plan were to move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Delegate Wilkins. And I love your glasses, by the way. Sorry, when your hand came down, you went from the top of my screen all the way back over to the other side. Yeah, well, and I'll just quickly touch on Takoma Park was really engaged in the coalition of municipalities for about most of the last year and a half that we had been working on this. And then again, I think they just decided to take a pause on sort of any legislation during the election season. But they had been engaged in the conversation earlier on. Yeah, I mean, so, as I mentioned during the hearing, I mean, essentially what this is doing is really clarifying what authority really is on the books already that's been on the books since 2006, where, if you read the Attorney General's opinion that's included in the packet, it basically says that right now municipalities can do almost whatever they want within the confines of these single family zones, potentially to stop multifamily housing. And that is not the intent. So what we think we came up with here is a really reasonable way to say, this is essentially the authority that municipalities are supposed to already have. And they are willingly giving up what could be construed as wide open authority to allow for that continued ability for municipalities to be able to have influence over, these types of homes, again, tied to similar requirements for single family homes. And so, this is all meant to fit within what is in the attainable housing documents. And I think, part of the reason that we've been really closely working with the planning board is we want to make sure that this is in the spirit of what those goals are. And so, again, we've got to sort of figure out that potential little hiccup with larger multifamily buildings above 5 units. But again, if you read through the attainable housing policy, what we're trying to do here fits within the spirit of that. And that's, again, why the planning board's been with us every step of the way.
Thank you so much.
You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Corman, did you have a question? I thought I saw your hand raised. No? Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, not seeing any more questions. Yeah, I will be also waiting to hear from Tacoma Park and of course your follow-up conversations with the planning board. Especially in light of, I think, a recent article about how Montgomery County's housing stock, the increase is pretty much the lowest in the state. I think I saw that this morning or last night. This type of bill, we need to make sure that, you know, we're doing everything we can to keep things going well for municipalities, but not making it appear that we're restricting any sort of work on attainable housing and increasing the housing stock. So, okay. All right, cool. I think those are all the questions that I see and I've heard for this bill. If there is nothing else, we can move on to the last bill we have on the agenda, which is the MCPG 10525, the WSSC Transparency and Reform Act of 2025. Is WSSC on the call?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
If it's all right, do you mind if I, Majority Leader Moonstyle, just provide a brief update before you solicit WSSC's comment?
Oh, yeah, I was just checking to see if they were on the call, but yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we
Yeah.
are.
Okay,
Chair.
great. Thank you. Thank you. I just couldn't see in the Zoom world here. Yeah, you said Delegate Moon's on the call?
No. I'm just channeling the way Delegate Moon deals with these complicated bills and providing a probably too long update as a wind up before we get
No,
to.
Delegate Corman, take it away. I was like, you're giving the floor to Delegate Moon?
No. I would never do
Go
that.
ahead.
I already gave a job to him, so I'm not gonna well, thank you, Madam Chair and committee colleagues. Also, probably a good time to thank WSSC for all their work over the weekend and today. They've been dealing with a ton of breaks and leaks and trying to make sure the water keeps flowing. So my kids can go back to taking showers that are too long. So thank you to them for their work. I met with the general manager this morning. She braved the Beltway to come see me in District 16, which I appreciate. I had a long call with her staff in the afternoon, and they sent very detailed feedback today that hopefully I think Ralph circulated to everybody. So obviously a lot to dig through there. They had asked the county council and the county executive to hold on taking a position on the bill, which of course I, have no problem while they're waiting to provide their feedback, which they did today. And so I'm still digging through that feedback. And we don't have to go line by line here, but some of it I think is, very well taken and, would benefit from amendment language from them to make adjustments to the bill. I think, no surprise, I don't agree with, all of the, statements in their feedback, but look forward to substantive amendments from them, recognizing that we're, 5 days into what's a 90-day session. And so, we can't, I hope the committee and the delegation, won't wait forever. That said, I did just want to mention a couple of other amendments that I don't think were in their feedback that I'm planning to draft based on feedback from several of you. One would stage the timing if we choose to make the change to one of the county commissioners to be the director of environmental protection. Again, recognize WSSC has a set of opinions on that, but one of you had very good feedback about staging the timing of that based on when a vacancy occurs on the commission, so someone doesn't sort of get booted off midterm. As I mentioned, I think in the hearing, I would strike the study language related to differential pricing because WSSC is sponsoring a bill on that issue. So, this bill doesn't need to encompass that. One of our colleagues asked that any DLS study include discussion of coordinating among utilities. I know we all hear this from our constituents about how, Comcast was in there, 1 week and then, paved it over. And then 3 weeks later, Washington Gas was in there, digging that up. Now, obviously, this bill is not going to be a vehicle to solve the sort of dig once challenge, but, one of our colleagues was interested in having the DLS study weigh in on that. So I would include that. And then I did receive some language today from some folks regarding the monthly billing issue and just asking that the language be clarified that provision, which is just intent language, is neutral as to the mechanism of shifting to monthly billing. As you recall from the hearing, there was a lot of concern about one particular form of technology. I'm personally agnostic. I think the provisions are relatively agnostic currently, but you know, am open to sort of an amendment there to restate how agnostic I am about that outcome. So again, happy to engage on the great detailed feedback from WSSC, but those are some of the amendments that I have sort of in the queue already based on feedback from folks on this committee and others in the delegation.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Corman. Ms. Marquinhos, if you, I did receive the document. Let me ask, was this document created after talking with Delegate Corman or something you guys had already prepared? I'm just trying to see if it was reflective of your conversations this morning or, oh, I see Ms. Powell, I apologize.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I
Sure.
didn't want to disrupt the flow of your work session. I prepared some formal talking points, but since this is a work session, is it okay to? Okay. Thank you. I did want to recognize that our chair of the commission is on the line, T. Eloise Foster is here. So I wanted to yield to her if she wanted to make any specific comments, if that's okay. Perhaps not.
Here I am.
Oh, there you go.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to thank the members of the Montgomery County Metro Washington Committee for allowing us to attend this work session and soliciting our input. I think the general manager is really going to say that we are committed to working with the lead sponsor as well as the co-sponsors on this legislation to address what it means to WSSC and to address any unintended consequences that this legislation could have on the organization as well as our ratepayers. I tuned in because I too just really wanted to hear what specific members of the committee may have wanted us to be able to address your questions and to tell us about any concerns that you have. So with that, I'll turn it over to General Manager Powell.
Thank you, Madam Chair Foster. Madam Chair, to answer your question, I met with Delegate Corman a few weeks ago. Initially, when the bill was released, the legislation was released. And I did reach out to him, and he was so gracious to make time available so that I could provide him an update on the concerns that he had expressed as being what led to this legislation. So I want to thank you again, Delegate Corman, for that time. And thank you, Delegate Wilkins, for taking my call as well. I heard your messages loud and clear, and I truly take those to heart. What we endeavored to do in putting this together, and we have been working on this, we have a legislative committee of commissioners, and we met with them, that legislative committee, to discuss the legislation and to begin to unpack the concerns regarding the legislation, primarily being what the legislation suggests as a need for reform of the commission. We certainly agree with transparency, and we have endeavored to be transparent. Some of the issues that are included in the legislation, I've actually spoken to on the record, and we have been working to address concerns, especially concerns around high bills and customer issues, protocols within customer service. And we included a timeline because of the Avenel discussions, because there was a concern raised that we had not been in communication with the community or been coming to the table. And in fact, we had several discussions and briefings over this last almost 2 years. And the goal with the package that was distributed, because the commissioners have not taken a formal position, was to raise the concerns that were expressed by commissioners and concerns that we see as management. There was also a memo included from the Inspector General related to their responsibilities as it relates to a provision in the legislation with the review from Department of Legislative Services. The Office of Inspector General was created by the Maryland General Assembly in 2018, and it has it has the ability to do all of those reviews. We also raised the benchmarking and other reviews that we do internally and what our structure is to make sure that we're focused on efficiency and sustainability of the utility. I started by saying that one of the primary concerns was around what the bill suggests. We are under surveillance right now. We have a financial transaction coming up in February. We have been speaking with the rating agencies and under surveillance by the rating agencies. When I came on board in January of 2023, WSSC Water was under a negative outlook. We worked to put a financial strategy in place to have that negative outlook removed. We had been under a negative outlook for 2 years, so it was potentially facing a downgrade, which would then have negative consequences for our customers. So we believe that, and had consulted with our bond counsel a few times now. That particular provision, as well as the provision around unlimited billing adjustments, would raise concerns with the rating agencies because that would impact our revenue from a management standpoint. And our bond rating, which we're AAA bond rated by all 3 rating agencies, there's a concern that this potentially raises about our financial management practices and whether or not they are sufficient, and if we have those measures in place. And so there's some other, several other sections because of the comprehensive nature of the legislation. We did do our due diligence to go through this carefully, making sure that we were citing provisions and particularly statutory provisions that we adhere to, and expressing the potential impacts of the legislation.
But to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, one of the concerns raised is the concern how this bill will impact the rating agency. Was that one of the concerns raised?
Their review of WSSC Water, if not our rating, then potentially our outlook. And we did have a conversation with bond counsel about the provisions, and that was a concern that they raised.
Okay.
Though they do recognize that the legislation is a proposed piece of legislation.
Okay. Any other questions or comments based upon Ms. Powell's explanations? Okay. Not seeing any. Okay. Oh, I hear it. Okay. Yeah, Delegate Wilkins.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Delegate Corman, Chair Corman, for your leadership on this bill. I definitely think this legislation, its provisions are long overdue for our residents who really want to see these types of changes. I've said previously that one of my main pieces of interest is in regular billing. And I have been able to have 2 conversations with WSSC about this piece of legislation, and I do want to thank them for their outreach and their time and their diligence. It's my strong belief that it's absolutely critical for our residents to have some anticipation around their bills and what is going to be due. And I think that if we can't do, and you've explained to me the number of challenges around doing monthly billing, but even regular billing, if you can only do every 3 months, it should be at a regular time that people can anticipate. So I wanted to give an opportunity, because I think there are many residents and our thousands of folks listening that are interested in particular on that billing issue, and wanted just a quick synopsis if you could share with the group around that. And finally, before I close out my question, I do want to lift up WSSC, especially with the challenging essential water situation that our county in Prince George's has had, that Chair Corman also mentioned. I think you all did do a wonderful job in terms of communication. I felt like I knew what was going on, able to communicate that with constituents. And so I see now that the essential water use has been lifted, and I appreciate that real-time update. So I did want to thank you for the strong communication during this challenging water situation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. And thank you for the question. One of the, let me just back up and say that we appreciate the intent to move to monthly billing. That's a discussion that we have had on an ongoing basis. There was a moratorium in place that was preventing us from putting a specific plan together where meter infrastructure is concerned. We are manually reading meters. We have 473,000 or so accounts. 30,000 thereabouts are read through automated meter reading using a drive-by system. So we don't have the resources to read meters to bill more than on a quarterly basis. And we've had specific difficulty in keeping those meter reader positions filled for our meter readers that cover Montgomery County. So in order to bill with accurate bills, not based on estimates with more frequency, we would have to move to a different way of getting those meter reads in for monthly billing. We are always concerned about any anomalies with our billing, and one of the impacts that or one of the reviews that we are doing, not only is the management team under my Office of Performance and Accountability reviewing high bills, doing an analysis on our customer service team, and that will transition to an independent review. Our Office of Inspector General also launched a review of high bill complaints. They sent notification. It's actually in their annual work plan, and they sent us a memo on it back in, I believe it was October, the intent to start that review. So we would have 2 reviews underway, essentially to make sure that we understand what's happening. And one of the things that we have started to look at specifically is any billing anomalies. And one of the such anomalies is the length of time between bills, to make sure that bills are being sent timely. And if bills are, the number of days between bills should be roughly 90 days, since we're billing on a quarterly basis. We're looking at where bills are either falling short of that time period when we would expect a bill to bill. We know that this last year we did have some impacts with bad weather last year, and also staffing challenges with our meter readers in Montgomery County. That has impacted the time frame in which some customers were billed. But again, we want to understand the fullness of that issue, and we can certainly follow up with you with that report.
Okay, based upon that comment, I do have a follow-up question. I remember during the hearing, there was talks of the use of smart meters. If there, if there's consideration of moving to monthly billing, would that be a particular system that would be considered? Because you said you would have to change the current system if monthly billing was implemented, or are there other tools out there to obtain monthly billing?
We're actually scheduled to have a symposium in February. It was pushed back from this month, but that symposium is bringing together stakeholders, other utilities that have already made the decision to upgrade their metering infrastructure, that have had different meter infrastructure upgrades in place for some time, as well as other subject matter experts. And we've invited some stakeholders from the county executive's office, and it really is open. We would be happy to extend the invitation to delegates as well. The goal of that is to make sure that we understand what the alternatives are. We understand that those concerns were expressed, and we've had in our discussions with the county executive's office understand that there would be a desire for us to offer an opt-out provision if we moved in that direction. Understanding that there are some people that would not want the smart meter installed. We need to do a further assessment. But the first goal, we did briefings for both county councils on the metering infrastructure. We have shared that presentation, and it is online as well, that talk about the challenges with the infrastructure, just so that folks can understand what challenges we're trying to alleviate. One of those challenges is folks, because they have a quarterly bill, you don't find out or see that you have high usage or a leak. It's difficult to detect a leak because you're not receiving a bill regularly. And so one thing a smart meter would do that would be a benefit to customers is allow you to see when there is a leak more immediately. And it would also allow you to pinpoint consumption changes in your consumption. So again, we believe that it would be a benefit given the challenges that customers have experienced.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments?
Chair, I just wanted to add very quickly,
Yes.
you should have received an invite, Monica Marquina with WCC Water, Director of Government Affairs, for the symposium. But I will follow up after this call to make sure that I realize it's during the session, but perhaps you may have someone on your staff that could attend. And I'll certainly attach, make sure you have that metering presentation that we provided to our commissioners as well.
Okay, great. And do you have a date for this February event? You said it got moved, but do you have a date?
I believe it was rescheduled for February 20th,
Okay.
but we'll confirm and follow up.
Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Is
We'll
that the
definitely
date, Monica? February 20th? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, that concludes the work session for our 3 bills. We should be scheduled next Monday for this committee, and you'll get a agenda before that as to what bills we're going to move forward on for voting. But with that said, thank you all very much, and I will see you all tomorrow, I guess, since it's pro forma tonight.